nestled just over the border from North Carolina to Virginia in Alton, Virginia, just outside of Danville. This is Virginia International Raceway, VIR for short, and today it plays host to round number 3 for RCI's IMSA Road Racing Championship. Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Dan Van Zutphen and Ash Bibby behind the cameras. And for once, I don't have to travel too far to come to one of these races. It is an amazing racetrack, VIR, that opened originally in 1957 based on just a couple of gentlemen with bulldozers plowing the racetrack. In 70s, this track was shuttered for many years, 26 of them in fact, until it was reopened in the year 2000. When it was reopened, the entire track motto changed. How luxurious, how inclusive, how cool could you make a racetrack? Today we have that answer. It's one of the few racetracks that has sort of a resort and spa added on to it, and the history continues today with the IMSA Championship here. 3 different classes on tap for you in round number 3. Dan, welcome to Virginia.
Yeah, awesome to be here. Never been here in the virtual world before, not even in the real world as well. So exciting piece of track I can see already. It's really, it's not that big. So I presume we would get some really entertaining traffic management today. And another fun fact about Virginia, it is an elevation change of almost 40 meters. So, and the drivers in the virtual world can of course definitely notice that elevation change. But Virginia, I'm excited what this race will bring. Never have been here before, so I'll let my eyes watch out.
Well, of course, the track is asphalt, and in its pretty much similar representation to what it used to be, the full course is almost identical to the way it was in the 50s. It's an asphalt track, of course, 5.27 miles along, or 3.27 miles along, or 5.262 kilometers if you prefer. It's got 17 turns, some of them incredibly quick where you don't slow down, some of them requiring you to go all the way to first gear. In years past, there used to be a old tree at the technically it's the most northern part of the circuit. Unfortunately, that tree had to be cut down some years ago and left sort of an empty hole in a lot of our hearts, not having that one singular tree as sort of a marker or an aiming point. I digress. This track, though, has hosted pretty much everything. IMSA's been here a bunch, SCCA Racing, which is club level racing in America. Different NASCAR series have been here as well. Trans Am has definitely cut their teeth here over the years. It's one of those circuits that we're just kind of thankful to have, and for a very long time we didn't have it. Laid completely dormant. The fact that this track exists today is something of a miracle. We've told you the history of the track. Let's tell you about the profiles and the contour as qualifying gets underway here. And it looks like Shuranak out there on provisional pole position, a 31.996 in the GTP category. Benjamin Heilman on provisional pole in LMP2, a 34.712 has done them well. Janjic in the GT3 or GTD category, since it's IMSA, with a 46.9, and those might actually, I've just realized, been the last laps. It looks like Meade has a 46.5, which would put them on pole, but I wonder if maybe that was invalid in some variety. I know there's 7/10 off according to the timing and scoring. But this racetrack, Dan, it's very unique. It's very fast sweeping. You can crash off for miles and not hit anything, but by that point, the damage is done on the scoreboard.
Yeah, it's looking at it, it's almost a pure racetrack. And there's not a lot of runoff. It's small. Every mistake almost matters, and as you say, it's small, but it's wide, especially when you go off. And yeah, I'm really excited again because I think it's a real driver's track with the high speed turns, with the slow hairpins you've got here and there. You've got of course a massive back straight, a real track. I love to see it, and I think the drivers love it as much as well. Unless you go off, be a bit less likely that you would like the track. But yeah, again, let's see what this race brings. Qualifying is almost over, and I think the order is almost set. As we see Mead going for another hot lap here, almost finishing his lap. Let's see what he can do on the timing board. Will it be an improvement? I don't think it is, Jesse.
It may have been, but they're still behind, and that will be all she wrote for Mead. I was hoping to get a onboard lap of the racetrack here in qualifying to help familiarize everyone with the racing circuit, but such is the nature of the track, the profile of the racetrack. A lot of drivers going off left, right, and center. It looks like it's going to be all over and done here. GTP category looking a little bit like this. Shuranak on pole over Sindelar and Luca Filippi, Billy Octane, and Jordan Daly, the top five there. Benjamin Heilman on pole for LMP2, Peter Roche, and Dijkstra third with Ted Edwards, and Hyla, the top five there with Bryant in sixth. GTD, Janjic, Mead, Anderson, Dominic, and Rowe, your top five, with Wolf and Merchant, your other qualifiers in that class. The GTP category, the newest category in iRacing, the newest and most alluring to a lot of the drivers. Several different manufacturers represented, looking like an all Porsche front row today, Dan.
Yeah, indeed. Really exciting, especially with that Porsche lineup in the hypercars. And it's very unique. I think the Porsche, they're really agile cars, and the hypercars of Cadillac, for example, do really well at Daytona, but may do not so well in the tracks with a lot of high-speed turns, perhaps. So exciting to see how that pans out. Of course, we still have the LMP2s, which are equal to every car. To every LMP2 car on the grid, and of course we have the GT3s, also a Porsche on the front row in the GTDs, you could say, the GT3s. So yeah, let's see how that pans out.
Quite interestingly, here at Virginia, it's one of the racetracks that manufacturers try to do battle on to see who they can one up in their manufacturer speed charts, if you will, somewhat akin to the Nürburgring. They also do a similar thing on the west coast here of America at Laguna Seca. They're underway for the pace lap, and while we have a moment, let's show you the championship standings after 2 rounds. Starting off with the GTP category, Lucas Christek leading the field, 136 over Luca Filippi's 111. Finn Dressel on 96 points. Bastian Lindner on 93. Ryan Leach rounds out the top 5 with 84. Jaroslav Sindelar on 81 points. Ermas Erkma with 74 points. Lubos Leb with 68. Jordan Daly on 56 points. Joshua Parrott on 44, tied with Vladimir Broshek. Tom Carroll in 12th place on 31. Theobald Roscom with 25. Scott William has 21 points. And Patrick Din in 15th with 17. Moving on to the LMP2 category, Maciej Hyla, and looks like Juszak absolutely locked into a battle, as they have been in the first couple of rounds. 1 point separating the top two. Christian Kampferger, who got a penalty at the end of last week's race, post-race stewarding coming into play for Kampferger. They were scored as the last car running and now have 95 points to their name. Mikael Sundstrom in 4th place with 92 points. Justin Dijkstra in 5th with 89. Tom Bryan has 87 points. Ted Edwards on 77. Benjamin Heilman has 56. And Rafael Hill has 40 to round out the LMP2 field. And last but certainly not least, the GTD category. Pavel Dazal with 136 points, leading the way over Zorian Janjic with 116. Yannick Roof in 3rd place with 97 points. Bart Macha with 85 in 4th. James Mead with 79 rounds out your top 5. Christian Rowe with 74, tied with Tom Watts for the honor of P6. Daniel Merchant in 8th place with 68. Ada Wolf on 56. Piotr Dominicus on 53. Frederick Gutman has 44. And Kevin Boss has 25 championship points. You know, Dan, talking to the drivers all this week, this was a race that caught them off guard. A lot of the drivers, especially European drivers, had never even seen Virginia International Raceway. They've never been to VIR. They didn't know what to expect, and this track has proved very difficult for them to get their heads around in a short period of time.
And I'm not surprised, of course, American tracks, especially the ones like Daytona, Sebring, and Virginia National Raceway, International Raceway as well, are pretty tricky to get your head around, especially when you meet them for the first time. Of course, Virginia International, definitely not an easy track, as we just discussed. There's a lot of high-speed turns, but a lot of blind corners as well. Amazing to see if a driver gets it right, but it's really easy for a driver to get it wrong. And especially for European drivers, it's always a little bit different with the European tracks. They always shape out a little bit different from the American track, but I think we just started.
We certainly did. It's not a long run up here, or excuse me, it is a long run up here in the GTP category as they all stretch their legs and get single file. That's going to be the key ticket here today because you don't want to be side by side for very long. It looked like Octane and Filippi having a battle. Filippi winning it out eventually. Octane trying to go around the outside. Has to settle back in line. Jordan Daly on lap now in the background, also looking to make a move. It's a clear getaway for Shuranok out in front of the field in their Porsche as they have Sindelar in tow. Continuing to work on lap is Daly. The little bit of a cork in the bottle now. Daly trying to make a way around lap, can't do it. It's a single file part of the racetrack as they go through the sixth turn in the snake area, and he's still looking for a move as Daly. Looking down to the inside of turn number 10. And he's trying to get around him in South Bend. He's going to be off the line, and that's going to back up Dressel, and here comes Leach. Leach making the move, and he's going to get contact here in South Bend. It's going to be a fairly sizable accident in the South Bend corner as Dressel has gone completely off of the racetrack. Everybody else able to scamper away, but the damage done, of course, as that will likely require some repairs. The LMP2 crowd has caught up. Here is the replay of the incident. Yeah, just got a little bit offline, ended up in the lap of, I believe that was Leach, in fact, he ended up in the lap of, and just nowhere to go. One of the dangers of this track. Heilman has maintained, I almost said tipped the lead, but he's maintained the lead in LMP2. And in the GTD field, I believe we've already had a car either out of the race or so far behind they haven't tripped the timer. Either way, one of the GTD cars, Dan, clearly out of position there on the track now.
Yes, we, I think, also have a change for the lead. Mead in the Mercedes qualified P2 and is now up into P1. As you can see, we're watching the LMP2s here. LMP2s just almost catch back up to the back of those few crashed GTPs. Which is awesome to see. Of course, the LMP2s don't really differ that much. We see another GTP, which he avoids, and I think he's calling it a day. But every LMP2 indeed avoids the crash. But continuing, of course, the LMP2s a little bit lighter, but don't have as much downforce and as much power as the GTP, and that's why they are a little bit slower. As we see a replay here of Dressel. I think he just spins. I think he just loses it.
He's already damaged, of course. And he almost rotated too much coming into the NASCAR bend. But he finally loses it in left hook, which is where he is right now. And as you said, Dan, he's called it a day.
Yeah. Yeah, very unfortunate for Dressel, of course. It can happen really quickly. Of course, the race is still long, 1 minute and 17 minutes ago. We just started, but yeah, that's very unfortunate. But I guess, as they all say, that's racing, that's part of it, and maybe better luck next time. Hellman, as we see, the leader in LMP2. Let's see if he can keep it their way.
Certainly will be looking to do that. Has a little bit of a lead on Peter Roche behind him in the CLR liveried car, who has Hyla behind them, and Dijkstra. Heilman could win this. That would catapult them back into the championship conversation That is for sure. Certainly looking good early. Qualified on pole, running away with it a little bit. His best buddy, Peter Roche, right now holding up Hyla, who has been a very formidable adversary in this series thus far. Also confirming that Rowe in the GTD category in that Audi, they are out of this race. Ada Wolf is still in this race. I believe Ada Wolf is actually, no, I've just realized something. Rowe is not out of this race. They've just come in pit lane is what's happened, and they've exited again.
Yeah.
So either they started from the pit lane or they've had an incident, has Rowe, and they've rejoined the field. So we have not lost a car in the GTD category, only GTP, and Rowe still out there in 7th place, 17 seconds behind the field.
And as you say, especially in the LMP2, just to coming back on the championship fight, it's 1 point difference between the leader, as I see it currently. I'm not gonna pronounce his first name, but Hyla, P1 on 130 points, and Jusjak, P2 on 112 points. So a really close championship battle, and it might unfold even further today. As we switch back to the GTPs, we are seeing a battle for the lead here. Anderson in the Lamborghini battling Mead for the lead in his Lamborghini, again Mead in the Mercedes AMG GT3. Of course, it's another one-way class like the LMP2s, but of course they're still in the same class. And let's see what Anderson can do on this really long straight. It takes a while, I think, as a driver as well, to just finish all these straights, because Virginia International Raceway does have a few long straights. But yeah, let's see how this battle will unfold. And I think the hypercars would be, I think they'll be catching the GTDs in a bit. Of course, as you can see on the mini-map in the right hand corner of the screen there, they're already almost at the back of number 7. Of course, Rowe, I think he had an incident earlier this race, so he will be catched earlier by those GTPs. As we see some battles for the mid-pack, Jesse.
Bailey and Lepp still continuing their fight, and our broadcaster Ash has confirmed that we were not incorrect. We have lost a GTD car almost immediately. Vladimir Broshek has not finished this race. I don't even know if they finished a lap, but the number 14 GTD car has retired from the race. Well spotted there by our broadcaster. Man, he's doing everything here today. Daly trying to do it all as well, trying to get back inside the top 5, side by side between Leach and Chris Tech behind them. That could be very beneficial for Chris Tech in the championship fight. Got to be careful here as they come into NASCAR bend. Turn number 3, they get it single file before left hook in the 5A complex. No names of corners here, but just 5 and 5A, and then they exit this. This is turn 6A, which is called the Snake, as we thunder down this isn't technically a straight of any variety. Then we go 7, 8, and 9 before we get another named corner. This one right here, turn 10. This is called South Bend. And then up into the most famous part of the racetrack, I'd wager, turn 11 and 12. There used to be a giant oak tree that's set in the infield there. Drivers used to aim for it. Of course, the oak tree no more, but the corner name still called Oak Tree. This straight, this does have a name. This is Madison Avenue, and it is busy, very busy. Trying to draft up to cars, trying to facilitate passes as you go down the back straight and into the section of the track we know as the roller coaster. And if you've ever wondered why it's called that, one would only need drive it one time before you realize why they call it exactly that. Final turn here, humorously called Hog Pen. And of course the pit straight, just the front straight, but a lot of creative names for the corners here that they've accrued over the years. Still half the turns though, not necessarily named, just given a number designation. Chris Tech's not worried about any of that, of course. Just trying to outfox Leach, who they've been unable to. And Dan, they've caught the GTD field, and it's already gone wrong.
Yeah, indeed. Let the chaos commence, as they say. The GTDs have been reached. We see Sindelar flickering with his lights there to just make sure the Audi won't hold him up or anything, because it's really it would really cost you so much time when you're just on the back of a GTD. Maybe you're sitting in LR and the traffic just doesn't fall right, and you lose sort of the string to the lead, as they say. But traffic comes into play, of course. It's endurance racing. That's endurance racing. It's as we see, the Porsche here of that is Wolf. I think he just spins on his own trying to avoid the GTP. As we see him coming, yes, on the outside line, doesn't quite have the grip, and therefore maybe even touches the grass, but he spins anyway, lost control, and that means Chris Rowe might be able to get a challenger for the wooden spoon anytime soon. However, I was surprised how close the GTP field still was. Of course, I think 10 minutes have passed already, and they were within a second almost. So that shows that the GTP field, especially at the front, is really competitive, as Anderson is now looking in his mirrors, trying to avoid the GTP of Surenak, and he manages to avoid them pretty well.
Yeah, Wolf there, I just think got caught out a little bit, not quite on the apex of the curve. They were probably looking in the mirror, looking at the GTP field, and didn't want to get too awfully close, and wanted to leave the option for Bill. This is very dangerous here, coming through the snake this time. We've got GTPs coming through, and there's a battle on for GTD as well, and somehow everybody makes it out without any sort of incident. But you're going to see that many times today. Of course, I just saw a yellow flag flash up for our leader in this class, but that was only because they were momentarily off. The nature of iRacing is if you go off the track even slightly, it will flash a local yellow for that car because it thinks it's in some distress, but in reality it's just going a little bit wide. You'll see some of the numbers for the position and class indicator light up from time to time, and that's exactly what's going on there. This battle definitely continuing. Octane has fallen off the back of Felipe, but Lep is now onto the back of Octane, Daly on the back of the both of them, and Christek now trying to gain on every single one of them in the background. But again, they find themselves in the middle of the GTD field as we go around for the first time. We go around the GTD cars anyway. They started about a quarter of a lap down in comparison to where the GTD field is. The way that the staggered start works in ACC for multi-class racing is you start in your own class away from the other classes most of the time. They were quite spread out, so instead of having to come the full circuit to get them, they got them in about 10 minutes because of the nature of the staggered start.
Yeah, and especially it's the same with drivers. That's why I was so surprised to see the GTPs being so close together. If you're a slower driver, especially, let's say you're a bit slower from the top at Daytona. Daytona has less corners than Virginia, so obviously if there are less corners and you're just not quite on the level, you're gonna lose a little bit less time, as in for Virginia, for example, because they have more corners. But instead, the GTP field was close, even though we have, I think, 17 corners on this track, which is quite impressive. And the same counts for a lower class car against a higher class car. Of course, GTPs have more downforce than the GT3s, so the GTPs will catch the GTDs faster here at Virginia Raceway instead of, example, in Daytona. Which is quite funny to see, as we see the LMP2s have reached the GTDs now. I think that's the LMP2 of the leader, Hellman, trying to make his way through the traffic. And Jesse, I think, especially in endurance racing, I think the key is how to manage your traffic, how to know what the driver is going to do in front of you and how to anticipate on that.
Yeah, and it only gets harder for them. You're absolutely right on that, but they've got to get through the LMP2 field, which the pace difference isn't that much different. It's about 3 seconds a lap for the top competitors, but in comparison, the LMP2 cars can be a little less predictable, and without that massive pace difference, it can be a little bit of a gamble, and they're going to run up on them in the next 10 minutes or so. Luckily, hopefully a lot of these battles will be sort of sorted out by then, but you never know. It can be a problem. We've already seen it be a problem today, the tight confines of the racing surface and some of the decision making can be altered quite a bit. These two cars, the two CLR branded machines racing each other. It's Tom Bryant and Ted Edwards. Bryant's found themselves in 5th, Edwards in 6th. He's caught them. Looks like Hyla's had an incident, a significant one for the moment. They've got it going though. Actually, no, they just ran off the track. They didn't even lose time to Peter Roche, who's second in LMP2. But this is the back end of that LMP2 field. And that kind of accentuates, Dan, what you're talking about. You got Bryant and Edwards, who, yes, they're driving for the same team. Yes, they're probably not ultimately being as competitive against each other or as ferocious as you might see others. Oh, and now Hyla has had an incident, a massive incident. Dijkstra's through. We're coming up to the accident scene as we speak in the roller coaster, and there he is. Hyla all the way to last in LMP2. It was a massive incident, Dan. What'd you see here?
But Hyla is the last car we see here coming through the corner. Oh, it's just a tap and he spins. Will he get collected by a GTP? No, he doesn't. He touches the barrier slightly. However, I doubt it will cost him any damage, but it's a long off. It's a spin, I think, on his own terms, and that will cost him a lot of time. He could fight his way back. As you see, I think another replay of the mistake. Maybe he has another one here. Cold tires, spinning, perhaps. No. He keeps it on the rails, and this is again, as BB says in my ear, we're watching the live action again. But yeah, really interesting incident.
Didn't come to pit road. That kind of tells you the story.
Yes.
Then that must not have been massive damage, but the car off the racetrack, and usually when you crash off here, you can't crash off for an age. You happen to be a part of the racetrack where that wasn't necessarily true. The Arco there somewhat close to the racing surface, but the nature of the corner was able to slide out and just get it back going. The damage done on the timing and scoring board. That promotes not only Dijkstra up to 3rd in class in their Dallara. That brings Tom Bryant and Ted Edwards up a spot as Ted's continuing to have a look and think about passing their teammate. Nothing doing there. You'd expect teammates to race each other quite respectfully. I reckon that's exactly what you're seeing. For all the damage to Hyla, the damage on the scoreboard anyway, not necessarily the damage on the car, they have started to reel back in Bryant and Edwards, and as bad as it was falling from 3rd, they're right back in it. They can see 4th place in front of them.
Yeah, but Hyla, of course, definitely wants to get up the grid because the championship fight is still going on. Of course, he leads the championship, but still just by 1 point. It's not in threat today because P2 isn't here, but who knows? He still needs to collect the points. Who knows what could go wrong in future races. And I think Hyla will be there on the back of Ted Edwards pretty soon. As you can see him just reeling Ted Edwards in closer and closer, just getting in his mirrors. Maybe flashing his lights. I just saw flashing lights, but maybe that was for a GTP, just showing him, I am here. I may have spun, but I'm here to regain that position. And they've cleared almost most of the traffic, so they have just a clear patch of track ahead, and they just can do whatever they want, albeit within the track rules, of course. So let's see how fast Hyla can overtake Ted Edwards, because I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when.
Certainly is, and you've got Shernack up in front of this field, and unless my eyes deceive me, that is a mid-season sign-up. I don't see them on the championship standings, but that's just the way it works here at RCI. You don't have to wait for a brand new season, as Bristec goes off the racetrack there a little bit in their pursuit of Jordan Bailey. That will lose them about a second or two on that battle for 6th place. But yeah, Shernack, as far as I can tell, brand new entry into the series, qualified on pole, joined mid-season, which is completely fine. You can do that for all of our series, by the way, no matter what sim it is in. and showing them how it's done. The championship's going to get a little bit more muddy here today if this result holds. Shernack has a 3.4 second lead. It was 4.0 seconds a little while ago. I wonder if Shernack's had a small bobble of some sort. No, it's just the timing and scoring interval going in and out. Sindelar in P2 isn't what I would call in the championship currently. Gotta go back to third. The number 9 car, that number 9 Cadillac of Luca Filippi, is the first car you could argue is actively invested in the final championship standings. And of course, you've got Christek, who's all the way back in 7th place. This is looking good for Filippi. It's looking good to get Sindelar back into this championship. And Shernack just letting us know what they are able to get done here today in their number 7 Porsche. It's going to be looking like a good showing as of yet. Peter Roche has taken the lead in LMP2 over Benjamin Heilman, as the 404 Connection Lost Racing Dallara has now taken the lead and started to drive away. Ted Edwards has also had contact and is now running last in LMP2 again.
It's very unfortunate for Ted Edwards, of course. Just said, when will Hyla overtake him? And I think, as he spins, locked it up, just spins, locks the rears, and just bye-bye racing grip. And now he needs to sort of find his confidence again, because I'm sure the confidence has dropped a little bit as we see a replay of that spin. Now we're back to live action, I presume. And really unfortunate for Ted Edwards, but yeah, again, that's racing. But I'm sure that Edwards could climb up maybe another position. Of course, he still has his teammate Tom Bryant racing, so let's see.
He's still struggling with that car.
Yeah, it's just when you spin, especially in these LMP2s, you have cold tires, especially on the iRacing. iRacing isn't known for having much grip anyway. When you have cold tires, in these high downforce cars, it's just not a good match. Your tires are cold, the grip is nowhere to be found, and you just have to build the temperature up slowly and surely, corner by corner. And let's see if Ted Edwards can hold on to his own.
Yeah, the track conditions here are sunny. I would call this very partly cloudy. It's 37.8 degrees centigrade, which in American terms is a very sweltery 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That's pretty hot. That's not unusual for the track temp to be that hot here, especially in the summer. It definitely would be north of that in some times, but it's still quite difficult for the drivers. This is not really known as a grippy racetrack. Not a lot of grip in this tarmac, and you add to it the heat, and then you start sliding the tires like we saw Ted Edwards do. It can be quite a difficult task. You slide them once here at iRacing, and then all of a sudden your grip is completely gone, and for that reason Ted Edwards has brought the number 8 car into the pit lane. Jordan Daly has also pitted.
Yep.
And they were, of course, in that battle with Lep and Octane and all of those. They have pitted out of that. I don't believe they had any issue. It's just that they have elected now to take their mandatory pit stop of the day. All the drivers have a mandatory stop, and you can track it with us, because in that center column that has nothing in it for most of the drivers, it tells you the condition of the race car. And if they have pitted, it will show you the lap, the L number, for when they were last in. Keep in mind, all teams, they have to make one stop and one stop only. Obviously, out doesn't mean they're out of the race. That means that they're on an out lap. They've exited pit lane. In means they're coming into pit lane. Pit obviously means they're in the pit lane. Obviously, DNF is did not finish, of course. But besides, you can keep track with us. Very few cars in and out of pit lane, and we would expect most of the drivers, I think, Dan, to come in right around the halfway point.
Yeah, a stint in the hypercars, for your info, is 40 minutes long. That's not because the tires would fall off, it's because the tank doesn't go any longer than 40 minutes. This is the same on every track. So Jordan Daly really opted for a really early stop, which I'm interested in, because it's not something I would have done. But let's see if it pans out for Jordan Daly. and let's see if the others got it wrong. However, I expect everyone to, because this race is 1 hour and 20 minutes long, if our math is correct, then I think you should have enough on one pit stop. So yeah, let's see what Jordan Daly can do, because he definitely doesn't have enough fuel. Oh, he just DNF'd, sadly. So I think there was an issue. There probably was an issue, and I hear there is a crash. We can see a replay of it now. Let's see what happens to Jordan Daly. Goes a little bit wide. Doesn't quite happen here on the tarmac. Oh, okay.
Oh my goodness, massive accident for Jordan Daly into the left hook. They went off a NASCAR bin, but that didn't look natural. That looked like a connection issue or a screen freeze, something of that variety.
Yes.
Because you don't just not turn, and that car just went straight on into the wall. Thank goodness there wasn't any other additional cars in that area, because that was a massive crash. That thing ricocheted off of a couple of different walls. By the way, Dijkstra has had an incident in LMP2. They are in third still, but they have plummeted down the for time. I don't know exactly what happened to the AAA Dallara, but something that lost them more than 10 seconds. Let's see if we can have a look here. He just goes off. Just goes off in horseshoe.
Missed his braking point. Missed the braking point, locked up. Didn't got any better from there. And resume your racing from that point onwards. Of course, he has dirty tires now, and he has cold tires probably a little bit. So let's see if he can keep it on track. And while we're at Dijkstra, I just want to point out, it's not exactly a classic, but it is a livery that goes back to the past. Of course, in WEC and IMSA as well, we had, I think, from 2014 to 2021 onwards, of course, the Dutch racing team with, of course, Nick de Vries driving for it, Job van Uitert and Frits van Eert, team owner. They done really well in IMSA and WEC as well. So great to see some, well, historic it isn't, but some memories, some liveries from the past back. So great livery by Dijkstra there. As we head on to the GTBs again, the fight with Christek, and I think it is Octane is still going on. Jordan Daly is out, of course, and we can see a great fight between the Porsche and the Cadillac here. What do you think, Jesse? Will we see any changes in position?
Well, for Christek's sake, I certainly hope that will be it. They need to gain points here on Luca Filippi, or at least they need to get as close to Luca Filippi as they possibly can do. Passing Octane is a great way to minimize the damage done. Remember, we showed you the standings coming into today. Lucas Christek enjoys a 136 points. Luca Filippi, who's running just in front of them, has 111. If it were to finish like this, Filippi would gain massively going into round number 4 next week. If Christek's able to pass Octane, that damage is sort of limited. Filippi would still gain some on Christek, but not nearly as much. Going down to the inside, space afforded, but only just going down into the horseshoe section of the racetrack. Christek able to make the pass with some difficulty. Billy Octane, I expected the lights to be ablaze. Looked like a slightly late move. Nothing of the sort happening. Christek's through up into P4, and just as I was saying, the two, the Lucas and the Lucas, they are running the show in GTP as far as the championship points are concerned. Filippi will still gain some currently, but of course a lot of racing here left to go. 52 minutes, and it's 17 seconds to gap up to third for Luca Filippi, or up to Luca Filippi, I should probably say. And with that in mind, Christek could turn this race on its head. It was looking like it was all going Filippi and Sindelar's way thus far as points are concerned. Zuranak doing their level best to run away with the show. That gap is still only 4.4 seconds. That gap rocketed up to about 3.5, but has sort of stagnated around the 4.5 mark, which is good news if you're Sindelar. It's bad news if you're Zuranak, who was again trying to gain back some more space, a little bit more breathing room, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. And we just said, of course, it's still 51 minutes from now, and it's a long race to go. But speaking an endurance race to go, 51 minutes is really no time at all. Of course, you have the 24 hours race, 6 hours and 12 hours race, and go on. But for multi-class racing, GTPs, especially LMP2s, a race for 1 hour and 20 minutes really isn't that long. So yes, we have a long way to go, but in theory, it isn't really that long. So let's see what we will have here. LMP2 catching some GTP traffic here. Tom Bryant won't lose any time to Hyla, maybe picks up a little slipstream as well. And yeah, the battles on the track have somehow kindly stagnated. It's a bit more spread out, and now we'll see. I think this is the phase of the race where it really comes down to you've got the start out of the way, and now it's up to you to make a difference, to see if you've got the pace advantage and maybe can overtake some cars or bridge the gap down or up to whoever you are racing, as Tom Bryant is maybe looking to make a move on Hyla. Hyla just touched the grass a little bit, I think, or just got a bad exit, and well, Tom Bryant is all over him again.
Tom had a little bit of a look down the pit straight that time, wasn't quite close enough in the horseshoe to make anything happen. This is more dangerous for Hyla, the championship leader in LMP2, than it is for Bryant. Bryant's going to be on more of attack mode here, versus Hyla needs to play this sort of coy, but in a way, Hyla can only lose so many more points in the class today, running fourth, of course. But even still, you don't want to end up making unnecessary trips to the pit lane. Looking at chat today, a couple of people cheering on their respective teams' drivers, and you love to see that, as always. The three-time Night Owl champion has posted a lotion emoji. I have no idea what that's for. Don't pressure joining us live for the first time in quite some time. Good to see you as well. Thank you very much for the kind words. Welcome into Virginia International Raceway, VIR for short, a track that has had a history spanning back to the mid-50s, closed for some 20 years, then reopened as almost a boutique racetrack, a country club style racetrack where you can stay at a hotel just off of the circuit itself. You can do some golfing, you can do some track day racing here as well, and of course enjoy top-level motorsports such as IMSA as well. It's been great for a track that lay dormant for some 20 years. The past 23 years here have been absolutely excellent, and today, adding to that grand tradition of motorsport, you can see just how difficult this racetrack is to navigate by yourself, let alone in the crucible of motorsport. That's what the drivers today are tasked with doing, a lot of them living up to it. But the unfortunate part, it only takes an instant here for the track to chew you up and spit you out. Oh no, one of the prototypes off there, that's Hyla, and that was the mistake I was talking about. Tom Bryant's going to go through. He was put off by the GTDs in front of him. He picked a lane, did Hyla, and it was the wrong one. Just going off the racetrack, here is Hyla. Maciej Hyla just dips a toe off, probably slightly distracted by the GTDs in front, not wanting to get too close, and just drives off of the racetrack, and that has promoted Bryant up into P4. Hyla down to 5th, and for your championship leader at LMP2, Dan, this is starting to look a little like a nightmare.
Yeah, it's looking really grey for Hyla. I mean, he's a fast driver, but if you keep making these kind of, let's say, silly mistakes, you're not really going to get far in your race. And yeah, consistency is key, as they all say, and especially on Virginia International Raceway, that isn't any different. So Tom Bryant has some breathing space again. He can think about maybe what he would do for the strategies, when he would pit, when he won't pit. And speaking about pit stops, I think we're approaching the pit window for the GTPs. In my mind, LMP2 stay out a little bit longer than the GTPs, but on the 40-minute mark, as Surenak needs to avoid a GTP there. Yeah, the where was I? The GTPs need to pit a little bit sooner because of their fuel. Oh, thanks, of course. Well, that was a really weird moment.
Oh, he's off in
Sugarnaut
the
goes on
dirt.
the track, and that's slapping GTPs. It's a struggle, and especially in Virginia National Raceway. What I wanted to say earlier in the race, you can really see, especially at the front, who has experience with it, who's confidence with the cars, and who's not. And that's a really beautiful thing to see. And that's, I think, really the beauty of endurance racing. What about you, Jesse?
Yeah, endurance racing is quite beautiful because you have to balance your pace, your speed with you have to be rational at the same time. You have to be really good at picking your way through traffic. Maybe someday in iRacing we'll talk about the weather playing a factor in that as well. And racetracks have different characteristics. You're not going to be as good at one track as you are probably another. Some drivers will relish the opportunity to race at VIR while others are more comfortable at like a Daytona or a Road America, for instance. And that's sort of the difference. And but it's so many things, Dan. It's how you work traffic. It's how your strategy comes into play, how well you execute your plan, how well you manage your tires in a race. So many things. We think about it just in broad terms of just driving a race car. And on a very basic level, that is what it is. But it's so much more than that. We just saw Suriname have a near destructive moment trying to work traffic as they came through a left hook in turn 5 and 5A and up through the snake. We saw earlier an LMP2 of Hyla go off in the exact same way. A GTP will do the same thing in that corner, where if you hook it, it will become a bit of a problem. Speaking of a problem, Ted Edwards has had another problem. Same thing again. Just too much brake into the corner. I would suggest a little bit more front bias in that car to keep it from rotating as much.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, it just seems to be get caught out, Ted Edwards, and maybe he needs to get in for another set of tires, possibly, because they've been damaged quite a bit by those offs. Of course, tires don't like that, maybe even overheat, and because of that, you just keep making mistakes. Or, like we talked about yesterday, it could just be the mentality. You make one mistake and then you make another mistake, and so on and so on, and it gets really frustrating. And if that is the case for Ted Edwards, it will be a very long remaining 44 minutes for the driver in P6 with the number 8 LMP2. And what I wanted to get back on, Jesse, especially because endurance races, as you say, it's so complicated. You need to think about all the details, fuel, tires, everything. And that's, I think, one of the main reasons why, especially in the 24-hour race, it's really important to keep it easy and to not overcomplicate things. But back to the action, we see the Porsche of John Dietz trying a move around possibly the outside of the Lamborghini.
Piotr Dominicus here trying to hold down the inside. He was flashing that prototype, didn't like exactly where he was passed. He thought maybe could have waited till after the roller coaster. It definitely kept the Lamborghini on the outside of the racetrack and compromised their line. That allows Jančić into this fight. This is for P3. Piotr Dominicus and Jančić here fighting it out now. The Lamborghini of Dominicus under full attack. Defensive lines being taken by the Lamborghini. Jančić in the Porsche, though, had a good long look down the pit straight. Tried to do the respectful thing and go around the outside. Dominicus was not going to allow them up the inside anyway. It wasn't to be there. And after a couple of moments of frustrations from Piotr, now it looks like he's able to maintain the gap, at least right now, in that Lamborghini. Again, different fights in the championship battle. More issues for Ted Edwards. And here we go again, looping the car on the inside. And some of the other prototypes coming through. I think I saw that on the track map, and he has come in to make that pit stop that you recommended.
Yeah, he has come in. He also got lapped by the other LMP2s, if my eyes didn't deceive me. So yeah, good choice to, of course, get in for a new set of tires. Of course, cold tires. So be careful Ted Edwards, because you could still spin yourself around with those cold tires beneath the LMP2. As you can see him wiggling with his tail there. And we see the GT3 Mercedes of Mead, of course the leader still in this race. He's doing some pretty good times. Anderson, of course, is still behind him. They had a fight, a scrap for the lead a little bit earlier on, but Mead knew how to defend, and so remains in P1 for the race. Of course, still a long, short way to go, 40 minutes left. As we see the other GTP, the Porsche of Wolf, sitting in P6.
Right on schedule, and while we were watching the replay of Ted Edwards, the majority of the GTP field has come to pit lane. Shuranak has come out the leader over Sindelar and Filippi. Those are the top three of the cars that have pitted. Ryan Leach, just as I was saying that, has had an incident all their own. This is the end of that incident. There's something has happened to that car. They were super slow. They've now towed that race car. They're parking on the outside of Oak Tree and have towed that car. So massive damage to that vehicle. Unsure exactly what happened. The back end of that, the alignment looked askew, almost as if a tow link had. Oh, and that'll do it.
Wow.
That's exactly what it was. From the angle we had, it looked like the nose cone, the front clip was still on the car, but it isn't. You can clearly see it's popped off, and that would screw up the geometry, as I was mentioning. It didn't look right. But they have towed that car, has Ryan Leach. That leaves 6 GTPs out of the 9 that have started this race. This track is slowly but surely chewing up and spitting out this faster class.
Yeah, and I think it could be a little bit of fatigue, because, you just, especially at the top when no one's around and you're just driving. And you're just driving until some GTPs or some LMP2s get around, and you need to stay sharp. That Edwards, he spin once again.
Same issue.
Just same issue. Just loses the rear end, spins it, and I think he must be really frustrated. And I think it's something in the setup. Then if it continues to happen, maybe change the anti-roll bars, put them a bit softer, or put the rear anti-roll bar a bit stiffer, who knows. But really unfortunate day for that Edwards as we switch back to the GTPs. Of course, almost every GTP having done a stop, and we're now watching the GTTs, not the GTPs, as we see Piotr Dominik again battling for P3, and so the fight continues.
Certainly does. The fight continues. The chess match at high speed as the different classes find their way through. That has not interrupted the battle here in GTD. Sindelar and Lep have come in and out of pit road. No major drama there. And Shuranak has found their way to the front of the cars that have pitted. Billy Octane in this time. Chris Tech in the number 222 Acura, the only GTP car that hasn't come down pit lane yet. They didn't come down this time either. So I wonder if they are waiting to the absolute last. Surely they can't have many more laps left in that Acura on the tank of fuel that it has. Piotr Dominicus has brought their car into pit lane. That will interrupt that battle with Anderson for the time being. Ted Edwards again, this time in NASCAR Bend, has spun the car. There's got to be something mechanically wrong with that number 8.
Good Lord knows what it is, but it's just very unfortunate to see as we see another incident here. Ooh, oh my god, that's a very unfortunate incident. Got collected by a GTD, and the damage it could be much worse, but that's was a high-speed incident, and so I think this Chris Tech, yes, it is, loses a lot of time.
Who was that with?
Well, it looked like a Lamborghini.
Yeah, that was that unfortunately was with the 74 GTD car of Rowe, and the de facto leader in GTP has had an issue at Oak Tree, and they have gone completely off the racetrack. They would have been at least we don't suspect they would have been the leader anyway. But for Christech, this is something they can ill afford. This is a huge accident that will add on to their pit time. They had a pit stop to give anyway. That's the silver lining, did Lucas Christech. The problem is now that they're going to have to certainly 7 Porsche does come back through. Suranek takes the lead of the race over again. Sindelar comes through with Luca Filippi in tow. Christech sitting in the pit lane. That one incident right there has huge championship implications in GTP.
Yeah, indeed. It moves all with the order up, of course, as we see another yellow flag at Christech's name. Drops down the order, wondering what happened with him. Ayla, another yellow flag as well, so maybe some shuffling down in the track. But what I was saying a while earlier is fatigue could be starting to come a bit in play as well with the GTPs, LMPs and GTPs. And it's really interesting, of course, when you're in a 24-hour race. Let's compare it to a night shift here. Your fatigue is kicking in. You're a little bit tired. Sure, the GTDs keep you on your toes as well as the LMP2s, but we don't have many of LMP2s and GTDs around, or GTDs around here. So you really need to keep focused, and what you don't want to do is lose the detail in the lap, as I say. If you lose the detail in a lap, then you're just driving. It's really easy to lock up, maybe lose the rear, and thus spin and lose a lot of time. So could be a big factor here in this race, especially because Virginia International Raceway is such a difficult track.
All the good work for Tom Bryant has been completely undone. Tom Bryant got a penalty in pit lane, a iRacing assigned penalty for unsafe pit entry. It's a 40-second stop and hold penalty that has demoted the 244 back to 5th place. Of course, they were potentially a threat for a podium position here today. So an unforced error on pit lane. Unsafe entry, that must mean that they crossed a line somewhere, Dan, that they should have already been inside of, potentially against that green and yellow, or yellow, as normal people call it, line there. That could give you a penalty. I have upset the broadcaster now. He's making fun of me. You can't hear him. I can, though. He's laughing at me. But yeah, you come across that painted area. I got it. The painted area. You come across a painted area. That's the same as crossing a double solid line on the highway or the interstate or the motorway. And you can't really do that. So that's probably what happened to them here. Here's some racing action here, very close to the back of the Lamborghini. Just about saves themselves.
Yes.
Ted Edwards avoids a bigger incident there.
And that's what I call with experiencing in traffic management. If you don't have a lot of experience, these mistakes will happen. And it's fine, but mistakes will happen eventually when you have no experience with traffic management. So yeah, honestly not surprised by that mistake, but it's of course unfortunate to see. It's good that he did everything he could to avoid the Lamborghini, otherwise he would have ruined his race, which wouldn't be quite nice. But resuming with the live action here, as we see Octane, I think he battled a little bit in the front at the beginning of the race, but is now driving steadily in P4. As we see, I think Sindelar P2 just drove the fastest lap of the race with a 32.7. Of course, at the top left of your screen you can see some timings, and when the lap timing hits purple, that means he has driven the fastest time of the race, I am certain. So Sindelar maybe trying to catch the Porsche of Suranek, but let's see how that unfolds. Of course, 30 minutes to go. We're already past halfway, as we see here, the Audi of Merchant.
Well, pit stops in the prototype categories have come and gone, and this is the result of it. Saranac continues to enjoy a lead, and it's a bigger lead now than it was a little earlier on. Sindelar in P2, 7.2 seconds off of the lead. Luca Filippi in third. No threat around them, 3.7 behind Sindelar. Billy Octane, who we were just riding on board with, is in a distant fourth place with Lucas Lepp behind them in the fifth place position. And Chris Tech, after their issues before their pit stop with a GTD car, they now find themselves back where they started, P6 in that 222 Acura, the only Acura in the class. And they appear to be coming back down pit lane again. I think they're in pit lane right now. Looking in the LMP2 category, Peter Roche in the lead. Took the lead earlier on from Heilman onto the racetrack. Oh, and Tom Bryant has had an issue. They had the pit road penalty, and now they've slid off in Oak Tree. That's significant damage to the number 240 Ford Dallara, but they do not pit to fix it this time. The HWT car, I may have called them CLR cars earlier. That's my mistake. There is a CLR car in the field. It's leading in the class, but these are HWT cars. It's almost like they should pick different colors or something. Peter Roche does lead in the category over Benjamin Heilman, 4.1 seconds. Hyla in third place. That's doing their championship hopes and their lead some good on the podium positions. Dykstra in fourth, Bryant and Edwards. There is your drivers there. And of course, Meade leads Janjic in GTD over Merchant and Anderson. But the top three have yet to pit in GTD. They're going as long as they possibly can.
Yeah, let's see how that unfolds. Really interesting. Really interesting. Almost never seen that before. Definitely not on Virginia International Raceway. But really interesting. As we still have 30 minutes to go, looking at Tom Bryant here, we're back to the lead as we have some traffic to manage. Both the GTPs and LMP2s want to get by that Audi as quickly as possible. I think that's the Audi of Merchant. And really interesting. Of course, the race is almost coming to a close, but the battles for positions definitely haven't been finished yet and haven't been decided. Peter Roche, of course, still in the lead with an interval of 3.6 seconds, and I feel like, Jesse, that gap has closed.
It might have done, and that would be to Heilman's benefit, and I wonder if maybe Peter Roche has just got the bad roll on the traffic. Certainly not great here, but I think this Porsche will be a little bit more kind because they're not in any immediate battle or worry for the moment. The next nearest car in their class is actually, no, it's not. They're not too far behind at all. In fact, this is Sindelar, as far as I know, who's making the pass on the LMP2 leader. Sindelar goes through. They do have Luca Filippi closing in on them, so they do have to get a move on, but very respectful, waiting in the roller coaster section, and probably could have forced the move into Hogpen. Doesn't wait till they get to the front straight. That's respectful driving as the faster class of car. That's what you expect out of these drivers, and that's what you certainly got there for the moment. And the gap may have been slightly impacted back to Luca Filippi, but sometimes, hey, it's the hand you dealt, it's the dice that were rolled, and you just gotta make with it what you will. And the worst thing you could possibly do is make contact with other cars out there.
Yeah, and I guess they're kind of lucky because we have, of course, seen fields with a bigger GTP and a bigger LMP2 grid before, so there are some less GTDs now, and so you do have to sort of, you can take your mind off the GTDs for a little bit less time in this race. And Jesse, while the race is settling down, I loved your history about the track. I thought I knew a lot about Zandvoort, but you know even more about Virginia International Raceway. How has this track exactly come about in the recent years?
Well, I think if you're from the region like I am, I think you enjoy having this sort of facility. It doesn't look like a world-class facility like you would expect, like you would have for Formula One. It certainly doesn't have the finer edges that Road America has that we were at last week, but it is still a purpose-built circuit. The old story goes in the 1950s, they wanted a racing circuit, and a couple of guys, as the story goes, had bulldozers, and they just literally plowed the field in the design of the racetrack they wanted. And so the story goes, it ended up being paved and raced on for many, many years. This is a track that can host big events. This is a track where you can plan a vacation around to stay here. You can drive sports cars here. This is also a track that you can do grassroots racing on in its many different configurations. This is called the full course. This is one of many different courses that you can have. You've got the grand courses, which are comprise the east and west course. You have the north course, which is only and exclusively the main pit straight that we know. Actually, we're coming up to it here. You'll take a right turn on the north course. You've got the south course, which is the bottom end of the racetrack, and something called the Patriot course, which you don't see, but is actually inside the infield here at VIR. But it's a divisive track, in all honesty, Dan. There's a lot of people that love it. There's some people that dislike this track due to its complexity, due to how difficult it is to make passes. But as far as a racetrack, it feels unlike any other track that exists.
It's great to hear, and a great story, of course. You're a local man, so that's always great to hear. I think we've just been requested some U's, Jesse. Uwu Club is back.
What I do know is Jean-Jacques here has assumed the lead in GTD because Mead has come into pit lane. The number 29 Mercedes doing their required pit stop. That leaves just two cars that have yet to do their mandatory stop today, including this driver, Jean-Jacques, out in front in that number 24 Porsche, and Daniel Merchant in the 175 Audi. Anderson in the Lamborghini came in a few laps ago. And Mead, of course, in there now. And they are dropping a little bit down through the field. That's promoted Anderson. Dominicus up a few positions. And will they get out in front of Ada Wolf? I suspect they will do by the time they hit the exit. Got to be careful. No tire blankets, no tire warmers in this series either. So you come out of pit lane, you know approximately what grip you should have, and then all of a sudden you don't have any of it. You start sliding the tires, and then somehow you've changed tires, but you've immediately ruined them.
Yeah, it's the danger of iRacing, really. Of course, there have been sort of and that's Piotr Dominik going off there. Doesn't hit the barrier, but just having a really big moment going onto the grass there, and that's not the racetrack, that's not where you want to be. And so Piotr Dominik loses a bit of time. I don't think he loses any positions by doing so, but unfortunate for the driver in the number 6 Lamborghini. But to come back on your story, Jesse, yes, iRacing, there have been some complaints about really icy tires, and that the tire model just isn't that great. It's a little bit cold, it's a little bit icy, and some drivers have even described it as driving on ice itself, especially on cold tires. So yes, that's definitely the dangers of iRacing, and it shows in the GTPs as well. I've driven loads of GTPs in iRacing, and for example the Cadillac can warm the tires a little bit quicker than, for example, the Porsche we see here, and the Acura is almost just in the middle of that. But especially the Porsche, if I go out on a track like Road Atlanta, bumpy track, lots of corners, you can spin in no time. So yes, what you say is true. You really have to take care for these cold tires.
And therefore, that moment that Piotr Dominicus had right there, that's exactly exemplifies what this racetrack does to a driver. You get lulled into that false sense of security. You race around here for coming up on an hour, and you're breaking points and all that, everything's fine, and all of a sudden, the track catches a cloud like it has in this particular section. You'll notice that in the southern section of the racetrack, there's no sun in Oak Tree, and now we come down the straight here and down into the roller coaster section. The sun's back out, the temperature's changing, and then if you're sort of on autopilot out there by yourself, you mess up one turn and then you're in a world of hurt, because look at all that green real estate out there is. And you want to talk about ice tires, nothing's more icy than being out there on that grass. But luckily for Dominicus, no major damage done. They're still in third place in the number 6 Lamborghini. They're running their own race. But it was definitely a wake-up call. You don't realize sometimes that you're getting yourself into trouble until it's too late, and it's so easy here.
Oh, yes.
Just like most racetracks, we see it at Spa and iRacing a lot too, where drivers will try to maximize the corner. They'll touch a little bit of the grass, and then all of a sudden they're in trouble. That's the same thing that happens here at VIR, because the track limits are so precisely defined. You try to maximize, and all of a sudden you're touching the grass, and you are in for a rude awakening. Chris Tech has just run the quickest lap of the race in the GTP category, a 32.466. The Acura, again, the quickest car. The unfortunate part for Chris Tech, with a couple of issues thus far today, has relegated them to 6th place for the time being. Another moment here for Tom Bryant, it seems.
Ouch.
Looks like they were just trying to get out of the way of the leader. That was Peter Roche coming through.
That front doesn't look right.
It definitely doesn't look right, does it? It looks like it's
just hanging there.
Yeah, it's off camber. Something on the alignment is wrong to begin with. But I was just going to comment, I've taken that long ride myself, and here back to live images is Tom Bryant coming down to pit lane. So something happened prior to that, Dan. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, wonder what it would be, and let's see if we can get a replay of it. We can. I think this is, yes, on the grass, loses it in the wall. Very big spin, and yeah, that is, I guess if his race wasn't already over already, it definitely is now. He might fall down to last place because that Edwards is still racing in a lap down. But yeah, that's really unfortunate for Tom Bryant.
I saw those marks in the grass, being a motorsport detective and all. I saw those marks in the grass and thought, have those always been up there near Oak Tree? It just kind of brushed it off as something that may have happened earlier. It never occurred to me that that was related to the Tom Bryant incident, but it certainly was. Hard into the wall in Oak Tree, and a immediate return to pit lane. Dykstra has had an issue. They're off currently. I think they've just about got the ship righted. I would imagine that was a dip of the tire off into the dirt as well for P4 in LMP2. Here is the 888 Dallara. This is turn 1. How many times have we seen this in the hairpin and just completely off of the racetrack in Horseshoe? It gets right back on. But that little off right there, folks, was 4.5 seconds worth of time loss. Well, final 18, call it 19 minutes of the race. Cyranak has established themselves as the dominant driver of the day in the GTP category. 8 seconds the gap to Sindelar, who at one point enjoyed the quickest lap of the race. That's then been taken over by Chris Tech, the championship leader, who's down in 6th place. This is certainly going to shake up the championship points in many of these classes. Sindelar in P2, Luca Filippi in 3rd, Octane in 4th, and Lep your top 5. Chris Tech and Leach your finishers, or your current runners, I should say, in the GTP category, except Leach has been towing for an age. I don't suspect that Cadillac is going to return to the race. Peter Roche leads in LMP2. Benjamin Heilman was on pole position. Roche was able to track them down and pass them. They have a 5-second gap between them. Heila in 3rd, your championship leader in LMP2, trying to manage the gap as best they can, doing a decent job of that with the podium currently. Dykstra is 4th with Tom Bryant in 5th, who's recently had an incident all of their own. Luca Filippi has just had a crash themselves in 3rd place in GTP. And after the pit stops have completed, Anderson has assumed the lead in GTD in their 221 Lamborghini over Janjic and Piotr Dominicus. Mead in 4th, Daniel Merchant in 5th, Ada Wolf 6th, and Rowe in 7th. We lost a GTD car almost immediately in this race. I'm curious to see what happened to Luca Filippi there. Hemorrhage time did the number 9 Cadillac, but don't know exactly how that would have come about. Here is Luca Filippi in the Cadillac. This is coming up to South Bend. Oh, nothing there. Dips a tire, and they're going to go straight off. Did they make it to the barrier? I don't suspect they will. And they just about got it stopped. Might there be a part 2 here coming through the roller coaster? And there is. Just completely locks up that Cadillac. Well, it's been that kind of day. A lot of single car incidents. This track has definitely played up to its name. It's a very difficult track to get your head around. And while my co-commentator Dan Van Zutphen sorts out some things, we have Ted Edwards fresh off the racetrack. Ted, not the day you were looking to have.
Well, not really. I've been quite good at this track in other cars, but I've never tried it at LMB2, and well, it shows.
Well, Ted, what was going on? We saw the recurring issue. It looked like your brake bias was set too rearward facing. The car kept locking up. What was going on from the driver's compartment?
Well, I thought I had damage on the rear because I just kept slipping out through all the corners. So it's very confusing. Never had it before, and no one had touched me, so a bit weird. But I came into pits in the end to do my last fuel and tyres, and it turns out my rear left had no grip on it. It was 0%.
That explains the spins. Do you
Yep.
not have like a widget that tells you your tire degradation?
No.
Yeah, that all tracks. That makes sense there. We were just wondering. We were thinking like, man, I guess the brake bias is just too far to the back or something. It looked so odd that we couldn't figure out if there was some geometry issue with the race car, but not having any rear tire could certainly be the cause of that. Obviously heartbroken because, as you say, you've had good runs here. But, I mean, looking forward at the calendar, more races to go here. Of course, we'll be at Watkins Glen next week. How are you there?
I like Watkins Glen very much, Jesse. ACC and iRacing, so...
Oh! Meade involved in a huge spot of bother here. And they're, oh, don't cut the track. I think that disqualifies you or gives you a massive penalty if you do this. Maybe he slowed down enough. I know if you shoot across, it can give you a stupendous penalty for doing so. But Meade involved in a huge accident here out of P4. They did not come to pit lane. They're still circulating out on the racetrack. Chris Tech has just had an incident. And I think they've driven off the racetracks. What happened to the 222 Acura? Let's see. This is coming down into... Oh, just locks up. Another lockup. That's becoming more and more present. Does that happen more? Oh, he's got to decide where to go here. The Marshall post, well guarded. And he does rejoin. Ted, do the cars tend to lock up more at the end of a run versus at the start? Is it harder to get the cars wound up later into a run?
It depends on how your tyres are. Like obviously, I was looking a bit more towards the end of mine. Obviously, I had my problem with the rear tyres, but yeah, once you start loosening the grip in the front, which isn't a bigger problem in the LMP2, it eats its rears when it's fronts now, but it can be a problem. Like especially if you start flat spotting them early on. The flat spot's always going to be there, and then yeah, if you keep locking up, you're just going to make that flat spot like 10 times worse. And locking up in these or the GT.
Oh, speaking of, it's an incident for Chris Tech. Chris Tech, who had been passed by Lep after the incident earlier on. They're coming up to Oak Tree. Chris Tech's trying to get 5th place back, trying to preserve valuable points in the championship. Your GTP championship leader somewhat softly into the barriers at Oak Tree. That'll almost guarantee Lep gets to keep P5. Chris Tech has towed to the pit lane with 12 and a half minutes left to go. We're talking with Ted Edwards, who is currently still technically in the race, sitting in the pit lane, I suppose. Are you in pit lane? You're on the racetrack right now. How irresponsible are you, Ted Edwards? What What message are we telling the baby children that it's okay to talk on the phone and drive? You can't do that. You're hands-free though, right? Your He's hands-free, ladies and gentlemen. He's legal in 49 states and most of Europe except that one country. We're okay. He's hands-free communication. It looks like the car is very much under control now. How does it feel to you driving around? It feels fine now.
It's funny what grip does, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's something. Dan, while you were away, we were talking with Ted Edwards. We've learned the reason the car was so prone to spinning. He had 0 tread left on the rear of those Michelins is what was going on.
Yeah, I have no idea what the strategy is, how long an LMP2 can stay out for fuel, but yeah, very unfortunate that, but I'm glad you have some more grip now. Let's see if you can use it at the start of the race next time around.
Oh, I hope so, because Watkins, I just said to Jesse, Watkins is a favourite track of mine, so...
Well, we'll have some high hopes for Ted Edwards. Let's see. But yeah, 10 minutes to go, still in the LMP2 class. Ted Edwards driving Tom Bryant, a little yellow flag there. But again, Jesse, everything's just settled down now. Will there be any movement in the pack?
We'll have to see. Just because we're near the end of the race doesn't mean the positions can't change hands. Case in point. Looks like Tom Bryant takes another trip through the grass. Luckily, this time able to keep it straight enough that it doesn't spear off into the walls, able to make it through Oak Tree without any further issue. Some drivers still running their quickest times of the day. Dijkstra just ran 36.489. That was the quickest of their field that time through, and also Dijkstra's quickest lap of the race. Heilmann's having a bit of a moment, making a major moment. The pole-sitting driver in LMP2, the 796, has gone off in a major way and has more than doubled the gap to Peter Roche. They should be comfortable now. Should Roche? What's happened here? Oh, the Porsche.
Wow.
The Porsche just loses grip, has to catch it right into the path of Heilmann. Heilmann absolutely a passenger there, no fault of their own. And that's exactly what I was just saying, Dan. That is the danger of this type of racing, the multi-class racing. Just because you're near the end doesn't mean danger and drama can't find you. Completely just in their own world, running their own race. Looked like an easy P2 for Heilmann. That's got to be significant damage to that car now.
Oh, it sure is. However, he seems to be kind of gaining in the straights if the iRacing delta time doesn't lie. So maybe the damage is still it's still drivable worthy, and of course he has gapped 28.8 seconds to Hyla, so he could be safe just for the remainder of this race. 8 minutes to go, but yeah, what you say, that's endurance racing. Of course, the unwritten rule is the gentleman's agreement with endurance racing is, of course, GT3s stay on the line and LMPs and faster cars are trying to overtake wherever they can, but just not on the racing line itself, because the GT3s claim those. But yeah, really interesting. But as you say, chaos can still happen, and it can still happen with 8 minutes to go.
Shout out to the PS UK crew showing up, representing, cheering on their drivers and teams. Of course, you got James Mead, Luca Filippi, Ryan Leach, and Daniel Merchant all involved. Tom Bryant once again flirting with disaster. That could be Tom Bryant's memoir. Ted, you agree with that, I'm assuming, as his teammate?
He was doing all right. I don't know what's happened to him. He was on a different strat from everyone, but yeah, had a minute, I do agree.
You almost had a nice battle with him. You were nose to tail with him early on in the race. Was there some sort of agreement between the two of you that you would try to catch the cars in front and not race each other outright, or what was the deal?
Yeah, so he was on the fuel save strat, whereas everyone else has decided to go full beans. So I was like, I'll go full beans. And then I made a few mistakes, so that's when I ended up back behind him. So we just agreed that I would just stay there. And then, yeah, by tyres, that's when my tyres decided they didn't want to be tyres anymore. But it was a fun battle.
we were wondering how that works with the HWT team. By the way, we do apologize. We called you CLR earlier on, similar paint jobs and all that, but we've rectified that, realizing that obviously you two are racing for HWT. Peter Roche is obviously racing for CLR in front of the field. CLR, by the way, stands for Connection Lost Racing. It used to be an inside joke amongst their teammates that used to happen to them. They'd be doing quite well in a race and just lose connection randomly. That hasn't happened in years, but they kept the name, and obviously their preferred driver number is 404. Quite humorous indeed. Close call there coming through turns 5 and 6. But while we have a few minutes left in the race, just want to thank our fantastic partners that help bring this race and every race to you. AK Esports, for more on how they can help you with your esports series, visit akesports.it. Fanatec is a leader in direct drive sim racing hardware. Check out their bundles and things on offer on the website at fanatec.com. Please use the link in the description that lets them know that we sent you. If you're looking to get more proficient at VIR or just learn how to be more consistent with your tires, with your fuel strategy, all of that and more, you can go over to Driver 61. They offer one-on-one driver coaching and full-on racing schools for you. Driver61.com. Digital Motorsports is your one-stop shop for everything sim racing. They have all the top products from all the top brands in one place. And while you're there, check out their sim rig builder. Build the sim rig of your budget or your dreams over at digitalmotorsport.com. And of course, if you're racing over on ACC, like they will be tomorrow night in the GT2 Championship, you're going to need some setups, and we recommend Go Setups. They've just launched a lot of their GT2 setup and setup packs. You're not going to want to enter that battle without one. GoSetups.com.
But you see a beautiful battle here in the GTD with a little bit of contact, door-to-door racing. They say rubbing is racing, as the Porsche could look down the inside, but he chooses not to, as we have some more LMP2 traffic behind. Of course, they want to lap the GTPs as soon as possible. Could break this pedal apart a little bit.
Oh, this is a sketchy moment.
Extra trying to avoid any contact as possible, but he seems to manage. Now has still one Lamborghini left to lap. With the straight line speed, it's an easy one for him. And it breaks this battle apart for P1 Anderson. Now a little bit. It's just not on the back of Anderson anymore. Of course, Jonitz is the Porsche in the green you see there. But yeah, that of course does traffic LMP2s to a worthy or a great battle as well.
That broke it up for the moment, but if Jančić got to Anderson one time, I reckon there's just enough time left in this race stand, 4 minutes, for him to close back up that gap. Traffic taketh and traffic giveth. That time I think it gave a little bit to Anderson because of the traffic split in between the two of them. Jančić in the Porsche had to back off a little bit, had to be a little bit more respectful. I think traffic flattered Anderson there for the time being, but they will be back together, and I don't put too much stock in minor contact like that. I think that was okay. That's probably the extent that it's okay in iRacing, but just a little fender-to-fender contact, nothing crazy there at all. Anything more than that, though, then that's a whole completely different conversation. Cernak continues to lead overall in the GTP category. The number 7 Porsche going incredibly well. I accidentally earlier the broadcast confused Cernak with Sindelar, and whenever they were lapping some of the other traffic, and do apologize for that, mixing up the Porsches. Of course, Sindelar's in a bright yellow Porsche, or Yalla Porsche. I did that for you, Ash. Our broadcaster gets a kick out of that. Cernak, of course, is in the house liveried Porsche. Very different, but you know, when you're colorblind, all things sort of blend together in your mind a little bit, or maybe just a little bit silly. Final 2.5 minutes of the race, a couple laps left in it. Sindelar will find it's just a gap a little bit too big, as they have been able to manage it. It was up 4.5 seconds earlier on. They managed the gap after the pit stop. It's been right around 10 seconds. They've managed that as well. But for Sindelar, it's a good rebound race. The same can be said for Luca Filippi who's looking to continue their hunt for the championship, while others, Dan, competing for the title have faltered. Luca Filippi hasn't.
Yeah, Filippi just we haven't seen him a lot. Oh, and that's a spin for Ted Edwards once again. Of course, he
I
wouldn't
wasn't-
be happy with that. Go on, Ted.
I don't know what you're on about.
we haven't seen anything. We haven't seen
All right,
anything.
Ted. All right, Ted, you're with us in the box. I think it's obvious, so I'll
You
just
can't
say what I
escape.
think happened there. You came up on a lap car. The pace difference surprised you a little bit, and then you realized, well, I can go to the inside and take them out, or I can lock it up, and then you chose the discretion and valor part where you spun yourself out. Is that about right?
That's about right. Yeah, I forgot how quickly they can break this, and it scared me a little bit.
Well, you did the right thing. Folks, if you're watching at home, you're maybe thinking about getting into sim racing. First of all, racerci.com. Get involved. We allow mid-season signups for all of our championships. Still time to sign up for GT2 for tomorrow. That an ACC sim. And since Ted and me are here in the box, I think we have to mention, Benjamin Heilman goes for a spin in the roller coaster. It'll be a roller coaster to forget for the 796 of Benjamin Heilman. They're going to bring that car into the pit lane early. That will
Ooh.
give second place to
No
Hyla
way.
here. And absolute stonks for the 213 of Hyla, who will somehow, after the day that,
Indeed.
based on where they started, Dan, they're going to gain a lot of points.
Yeah, and the gap to the leader is really big. So I think it's has caught us all by surprise. And I mean, I can only say hats off to Hyla for just staying composed after that mistake and almost making no mistakes, no errors. At least we haven't seen big errors from Hyla again. And it paid the price. He's back into P2, and suddenly his championship chances are well alive again.
Keep in mind, Hyla was running as low as 5th or 6th earlier on in the race, and now they're all the way back up into P2. That's the highest they've been all day, and we were talking about maybe being a day where the championship leaders struggled a little bit, and they certainly have in other classes, but not Hyla. They have somehow matriculated up into P2 by being consistent, and well, that's kind of the point of a points championship. The most consistent drivers should win, in my opinion. Hyla has definitely done a lot of consistent driving here today. Checkered flag will be out this time for Suriname. They come down the back straight for the final time. What can you say about a driver who leads it flag to flag, who gives up a little bit of time when they need to for the greater good, manages traffic incredibly well, and stays out of trouble? That is the day of Suriname today. The number 7 Porsche will come through the final couple of turns, 16 into Hog Pen and across the line. Suriname has won it here for round 3 at VIR.
And as you say, really deserved as well. Suriname really deserving win. Sindelar, of course, in P2. Also greatly deserved. Sindelar finishes in P2. And Filippi, I wanted to resume with my talk about Filippi. We haven't really seen much of him. And when you're someone who drives in P3, drives in a podium spot, just keeping it composed, that's a good thing. You don't want to be seen by the broadcast if you don't make any errors. So yeah, Filippi, well done over the line with a very well-deserved P3, and I'm sure he'd be happy with that.
Certainly will be. Peter Roche will come across and win the race in LMP2 over Hyla and Benjamin Heilman, your top 3. Dykstra, Bryant, and Edwards, your other finishers in LMP2. You just saw Octane, Lep, and Christek eventually will come through in GTP. And it's looking like, by the narrowest of margins, Anderson is going to win it in GTD. That Lamborghini holds out in the final 20 minutes after some excellent pit strategy and driving to boot. Anderson has won it in GTD over Janjic and Piotr Dominicus, your top 3. Behind them, Daniel Merchant, Rowe, who has advanced themselves beyond Meade, beyond Wolf. Rowe was dead last in this GTD race for quite a long time. but behind them, Wolf and Mead are your finishers here today in VIR. Round number 3 in the books here for the IMSA Road Racing Championship. We'll be back with you next week, same time, same place, for racing from Watkins Glen, 80 minutes of the Glen. For everything this track has going for it, the wide open spaces where if you make a mistake, often you're able to lock it down and stop in time. And the narrow track, for everything that this track is, Watkins Glen is the opposite. It's quite wide, it's very fast, and it can be over in an instant if you get it wrong. Other things on the RCI calendar, of course, Night Owl Season 17 signups are open. That starts not this weekend, but next weekend. More than enough time to sign up and get some practice in before Night Owl rejoins the schedule in a week's time. GT2 tomorrow. If you've got the new pack in ACC, there's still a day left before we go to Red Bull Ring in GT2. You're not going to want to miss that. The brand new track, the brand new cars. Who wouldn't want that? The Monday Championship, the Ferrari Challenge Cup, continues on Monday. The Midweek Masters back on Wednesday as well. We've got a full slate for that and more. Join us, racerci.com. And oh, by the way, we've got a WRC club as well, where you can win and compete in rallies of various length, various classes, and we would love to have you there as well. For now, we've got Peter Roche with us, the winner in LMP2. Peter, you had to work for it. You didn't quite get the pole position. You had to fight with Heilman, and then after that, it was just more about managing traffic. But in your own words, tell us how your day went.
It was just breathtaking, I would say, because this was the first race I did while just driving with just one hand, because I fractured one of my bones in the left one during the weekend, and well, I just decided maybe I cannot turn the wheel with the left one, but the right one still works, so I'm gonna try it. I can upshift and downshift with the paddles that I have in the SF 1000 wheel. So that was just...
There's a boastful saying, Peter, I'm sure you've heard it at some point in your life. I could do that with one hand tied behind my back. Today, you literally won this race with one hand. Like,
yeah,
are you
single-handedly?
Single-handedly won this race. Go back to the battle with Heilman. Heilman was on pole. Did you think after qualifying that, yeah, I can still win this race? I can go up there and I can catch him, especially with Heilman getting a little bit of a lead early. Did you always know that you could go up there and take the lead if you needed to?
I thought I can do that because my optimal lap time was 0.5. I think it was 35.5, and we both did 7 or 8. So I knew I had more, but in the beginning I was a bit worried because he was a bit faster than me. However, I think it was mostly due to the fuel saving, because he didn't save enough, so it seems. And I saved just enough. This was also the first time I had to use a fuel calculator, because I just wanted to be sure that I have the right amount of fuel, and I was just... The amount that I was saving was 2.9, I was just doing that lap after lap, and I managed to actually save more than I had to, because I think I would be able to one more lap. I think I had 2.8 at the end, so yeah, it was really tough at the beginning, because we were also fighting, I was also fighting Maciej Hyla, who was right on my behind, and well, somehow made it all work. Jesus Christ, I cannot believe it.
On the standings, are you did you come in today's race P2? Are you that driver?
I am.
You are
Mikołaj Juszczak in these standings.
Yeah, so you came in P2. I have good news for you on that, Peter. You are now the championship leader at LMP2. How do you feel?
Great. Let's bring it home. Hopefully, there is how many races? 4. I think I have to do 2 or 3 single-handedly again because of that fracture, sadly. But there is hope after today that I can still do it. So we'll see. I will practice. I somehow was somewhat comfortable today I practiced quite a bit yesterday to just, get a normal feeling and just try not to think about it all too much. And I did it. Somehow I did it.
What a heroic effort. I'm going to turn you over to my partner, Dan Van Zutphen, see if he's got something for you on that bombshell of a revelation that you drove one-handed.
Yeah, how did you even come up with it? What was your immediate thought coming over the line?
It's just relief, I would say. Like, I was just praying that I would not battle it because I was really getting quite tired at the end.
Yes.
My right hand was just getting tired, especially my fingers, because I'm not really used to downshifting, sort of pushing the pedal forward. That was a bit odd. But yeah, well, what helped definitely was just having quite a bit of a gap at the end, and I could just cruise at the end, so it wasn't so exhausting. But at the beginning, my goodness, I mean, trying to catch P1 and then trying to overtake him, it was just crazy stuff.
I wouldn't want to be your right arm when you would wake up tomorrow, because I can imagine he would be very sore. But yeah, again, congratulations for winning one single-handedly the LMP2 racer today.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Roche, your winner in LMP2 and new LMP2 championship leader with 4 rounds to go, winning it single-handedly. One of the most ridiculous stories I've ever heard. Congrats.
Thank you.
Well, we move on to GTD. We got Piotr Dominicus with us right now. Finished P3 here today. And Piotr, what a fight you had all day with the drivers around you.
Yeah, didn't really expect anything of it. I came in with like an hour of practice and suddenly I'm holding back a 5K driver. Fine with me. Just don't make any mistake, and I did after pitting. We will just skip over that. For the rest of it, yeah, great. Traffic, go away. Traffic was horrible. Jeez. Never again.
What's going through your mind as you know a podium's potentially on the cards? You're in GTD, so you're in the slowest field, but you're also fighting drivers the entire way. You're trying to plan your strategy. You've got GTPs coming around. There were incidents with GTD cars today. Surely you pulled up on the scene of incidents as well. You don't make the really big mistakes, and then all of a sudden, some drivers fall by the wayside, and you're in a podium position, but at the same time, you're talking about racing 5K, iRacing drivers and everything. How much focus does it take near the end of one of these things?
To be completely honest, I lost my focus in the end. I was just tired. So a lot of mistakes creeped up. I'm just lucky James wasn't close anymore behind. Same with Daniel. So first half of the race, really eventful. Plenty of dives by faster class drivers. A few scary moments there. Had a little bit of a touch with Ted Edwards. Probably will be seen on stream or not. Who knows?
Well,
so yeah, just I don't feel like I deserve this podium, to be honest.
Oh dear. Well, Piotr, I'm
I
going to
just
turn you
drove
over.
my race and I was in my own bubble after the second half. Yeah, I was just confused.
I'm going to turn you over to my partner, who probably has a question for you.
Well, consistency is key, Piotr. So I think you should be really glad with the P3. And just I asked to Rush the same thing. What were your first emotions when coming over the line then?
I'm just knackered at this point. I'm glad to have a P3. I'm like, alright, I will take it. But certainly there was more in it with practice.
Well, given your P3 was so unexpected today, what are your goals for next race?
Just keep the flow going, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm fine with finishing P3 or preferably higher.
Of course.
Yeah.
Maybe thinking about the win?
We will see. I'm not,
We'll see.
I'm not that confident yet.
All right, well, congratulations with your P3. Well deserved, Piotr.
Thanks for broadcasting, guys.
Absolutely our pleasure. And finally, we've got Zorian Jančić with us, who finished just in front of Piotr here today, P2. And Zorian, what a battle with Anderson you ended up having there at the end. What did you need to right there at the end to get by him? Was it traffic that stifled your ability to make one last run at the Lamborghini?
Greetings, everyone. Through just a little bit of top speed on my car was missing in draft. That's it, basically. But in the end, I got unlucky with the traffic. But yeah, great driving from the guy. What's his name? I forgot Anderson? Yeah, in front.
Yeah.
I was catching him like second a lap, but to pass safely, it wasn't possible. I didn't want to make mistake for his and my race in the end.
Respectful drive in the end, P2. Nothing to be upset about there. Are you happy with the P2?
Yeah, I'm happy. Well, I started first. Basically, I did a very good qualifying lap. I think 7/10 from P2. But to be honest, I'm not on iRacing for like I was off for like 3 or 4 years. I used to drive iRacing before. I came back now, and I tried to get used to it. But really, I was starting first, and I forgot to brake, and basically I went last in the first turn of the race. And after that, it was all about catching, but it's really hard to pass here, even if you're second faster per lap. And about faster cars, it was okay. Some dives, but like last race, it was okay. No problems at all.
Well, it was fascinating. It was fantastic to see a battle late in the race like that. It was very clear that you were being respectful. You were driving quite respectfully, not only with the leader of your own class, but the other class as well. I'm going to turn you over to Dan. Dan, do you got anything for P2 in GTD?
Well, just as you said, you closed up quite rapidly to Anderson there, and but you just couldn't get past. Doesn't that make you a little bit frustrated throughout the race? Aren't you eager to just get that final P1 position and end up on the top spot?
Of course, I was frustrated. Before this battle, I had battled for P4, I think. It was the Lambo, and it was the same. I can catch them, but I need to be really careful in corners to not like hit on the brakes, but on the straights and on the passing places, let's say, it was maybe I could send it on some places, but I'm getting used to it. This season is all about me getting back in some shape, let's say like that. But when I saw that, I think P1 had some problem in middle of the race. When I saw that I can win, I was start pushing like crazy. My tires overheated, but really, even a second faster per lap, it wasn't enough for safe pass. If you ask me, I could send it. There was a contact in turn 1, I think, but it was just racing, nothing else.
Yeah, well, let's see if you can get that P1 next time and maybe have the upper hand on Anderson or anyone else in the field again. Congratulations with your hard-fought P2.
Yeah, thank you so much.
One final good bit of news for Jančić here. He may be your championship leader in GTD now based on that P2 performance today with 4 rounds left. Zorian, thanks for coming to talking to us, and congrats on the very well done podium.
Thank you so much, guys, and thank you for this league. I used to drive ACC before in this league. It was great, and even this iRacing, if you ask me, is even better. So thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for your kind words. And thank you to all of our interviewees here today. We love it when the drivers get involved. They want to tell us about their races. They come in. Drivers are always so enthusiastic about their racing, the passion clearly there. but we definitely appreciate them sharing their thoughts, their comments, and their feelings with us immediately after a grueling 80-minute race at a place like VIR. Dan, before we go out tonight, final thoughts on what we saw today.
Again, a great race. We've been entertained. We saw spins, lots of spins. I'm not gonna say by who. We saw lots of spins. A little bit of door-to-door action. There was some of that as well. Some strategic plays in the pit stop. So I think I've been entertained this race.
Well, it was pretty much as we said it was when we came on air here tonight. We expected it to be a rough race, a race that would require ultimate concentration, ultimate precision. We expected lap traffic to play a factor in today's race in some variety or another. We talked about how difficult it is to make passes. Our drivers that we interviewed pretty much confirmed all of that as well. Greener pastures, easier passing as well, maybe next week at Watkins Glen. We'll be right back here with you next Thursday for the continuation of the iRacing IMSA Road Season 1 here on RCI TV. As a final reminder, you can still get involved. Mid-season signups for all of our championships available on the website are open to join mid-season. Our next broadcast on the channel will be GT2 Fridays, and we're at the brand new ACC track, Red Bull Ring. We'll bring all of that live to you in 1 day's time. On behalf of the entire broadcast team here, Ash Bibby behind the cameras, I've been Jesse Lee, joined by Dan Van Zutphen and Ted Edwards quite briefly in the middle part of the race. We thank you for watching this broadcast. We'll see you next time, and until then, have a good night.